Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Today, we have another set of 2 crazy revenge stories for you. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. So sit comfortably, and here we go. Oh, it's not your job? It is now. My dad was a mechanic for 20-plus years, and for as long as I can remember, I drove him nuts because I'd go around the house with a screwdriver he left out and take everything apart because I wanted to see how it worked. As I grew older, I developed an affinity towards computers and electronics, which led me to be that kid in high school who changed his grades, crashed the school district servers, and used the net send command with great success. I would spend my weekends either with my grandparents and uncle working on science projects or dragging my dad outside to help me fix my car, which consisted of him telling me that he would help once I got it taken apart. Those figure-it-out lessons were probably the greatest gift he could have given me growing up. I joined the U.S. Army in March of 2004 and went into communications, or commo for short, 25U. Where I managed to go from private E1 when I joined to sergeant E5 by the time I returned from my deployment at the beginning of 2007. After returning home, I was subsequently transferred from a light infantry unit, walking everywhere, to a mechanized infantry unit, riding in an armored vehicle everywhere, and placed in charge of the battalion commo shop because the current person running the commo shop was scheduled to retire in a few months, and I was the only other NCO. This is where things got interesting, and my commo versus mechanics pro-revenge story starts. Commo versus mechanics. As anyone else that was in the U.S. Army can attest to, every Monday was motor pool maintenance, which essentially means go make sure all the tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles, BFV, or anything else with a motor works the way it should. This included testing all the radios and communication equipment as well. If it didn't work, we filled out the maintenance forms with the correct shop and have them fix it. All the issues would later be consolidated into a report that the leadership team would review. If a vehicle was on that report, the leadership team wanted to know why it wasn't fixed. I ran my shop using the same approach my dad taught me, which was figure it out and don't come to me with a problem unless you have a solution. One Monday morning, after taking charge of the commo shop, one of my soldiers came to me with a problem he couldn't figure out and asked if I could come help him. I agreed and followed him over to the BFV that was giving him problems. After a few hours of troubleshooting, we finally traced the problem to the BFV's slip ring. We double and triple checked that indeed it was the problem because 1, slip rings in general have a low failure rate, and 2, it wasn't something we could fix on our own. It required help from the mechanics because the slip ring required taking apart the interior of the BFV turret to actually get to it. So I went to the mechanics to get their help so we could fix the problem. This is when I learned the mechanics didn't like the commo shop. I was essentially told by the motor chief to F off and the slip ring is a commo issue and it's the commo shop's job to fix it, not theirs. I was PO'd at the response and tried to insist we needed his help. However, I was promptly shut down and told to pound sand. At this point, I was beyond PO'd. I tried the official way. I even swallowed my pride and asked him nicely. Both times, I was crapped on. I decided I was going to play global thermonuclear war and teach him a lesson that neither he nor anyone else in his shop would forget. So I went to my guys and told them I'd be back in about an hour or 2 because I needed to run home and grab some stuff. When I got home, I went directly for the garage and started packing all the wrenches, impacts, and sockets that I could fit into my portable toolbox. I also loaded up the portable air compressor and any extension cords I could find and made my way back to the motor pool. Once I got back to the motor pool, I had my guys locate every extension cord they could find around the office because I could only find one in my garage and help me run power out to the BFV that we were going to have to fix ourselves. Meanwhile, I also had 2 of the guys run to the HQ and find me 2 of the largest empty coffee cans they could find. I ended up having to tell them twice because the first time they thought I was joking. They couldn't understand why I needed a coffee can of all things. When they returned with coffee cans, I had everything in place. I had power, compressed air, tools, and a place to neatly put all of the bolts, nuts, and washers I was about to remove. Under normal circumstances, I would only remove the things that absolutely had to be removed. The fewer things to put back together, the better. But these weren't normal circumstances, and I had absolutely no intention of putting anything back together. It was about lunchtime, and I decided my way of fixing this issue probably wasn't the best example to set for my team, so I sent them to lunch and told them I'd handle this issue so they could focus on the other vehicles when they got back. For the next few hours, I proceeded to dismantle every single bolt I could find. I removed seats, interior plates, shelves, pretty much anything that wasn't electrical or commo related got removed. I would then place all the newly removed hardware in the coffee can. By the time I reached the turret, I'd filled up both coffee cans with nuts, bolts, and washers, so I had to go find something else to start putting this stuff in. Luckily, we had Ziploc bags by the dozen laying around the office. I grabbed a couple of those and went back to having fun taking apart the BFV. I finally reached the slip ring and managed to luck out. I didn't have to replace the slip ring after all. Turns out the mechanics didn't install one of the cable mounts, and one of the commo cables got snagged and subsequently cut. Probably took me less than 15 minutes at that point to replace the cable and missing cable mount. Of course, the fact that I completely removed everything in the way helped, because now I didn't have to fish the cable through anything. Once I replaced the cable and made sure all the other commo equipment worked, I figured while I had everything taken apart, it'd be much easier to fix any other problems they might have been having. All commo systems checked out, my job was done. Everything that I had taken out of the BFV was then gently and neatly stacked in the interior of the BFV. I put the lids on the coffee cans, zipped up the bags, pulled out my trusty Sharpie, and wrote bolts on each of them. Once everything was tidied up, I went to find the owner of the BFV and let him know his commo issue was fixed, but he should probably have a mechanic look at his BFV because I had to disassemble some, and by some I meant most of the vehicle, in order to get to the part I needed to replace. And I couldn't remember how everything went back together. I stared out my office window for the rest of the day, waiting for the mechanics to get around to looking at the BFV. I still remember the reaction of the motor chief when he looked inside that vehicle, and if I didn't know any better, I could have sworn his head rotated around 3 times and damn near popped off. His reaction was absolutely priceless. I knew he was about to storm into my shop in a fit of rage, so I got up and decided it was probably best to meet him outside in the motor pool. As soon as I reached earshot distance, he started screaming and demanding I put the vehicle back the way I found it. However, I was having none of that. I simply shook my head and told him it was a mechanical issue now. It wasn't my job. I asked for your help in the beginning and was told no, because it wasn't your job. I'm just a commo guy. I didn't know what needed to be removed, so I could fix the commo issue in the slip ring, so I removed everything. If someone from your team would have been there, I think this whole misunderstanding could have been avoided. That vehicle remained on the weekly report for the next 3 weeks while they figured out what bolts went where. However, after that incident, I was never told it's not my job ever again, and the mechanics were more than willing to help me fix any issues that came up. By the time I left the unit, we ended up starting to cross-train each other's team members so we could fix things faster as they came up. I loved the Army. This is a great Army way to fix a problem. You taught the head mechanic a valuable lesson in working as a team. And our next story. Guy steals $400 of gas, but I get the last laugh. Backstory. I used to work at a marina when I was in high school that sold gas and allowed people to dock for free if they wanted to. Now one day a guy comes in on a pretty big boat and gets a lot of gas, like $400 worth. He comes to the counter to pay, gives me $400 in $100 bills. I accept them and he goes on his merry way. Fast forward a week or so, and I'm told by my boss that the bills he paid with were all counterfeit bills. Unfortunately, as he paid in cash, we had no way of tracking him down. So we think he just got away with stealing $400 worth of gas. That is until this idiot comes back after about a month and a half thinking he got away with stealing the gas. When he comes back in, I recognize the guy and tell my coworkers to call the police right away. However, I knew this guy would just leave if I let on that I recognized him and we discovered his plot to get free gas. So I decide to pretend I don't recognize him. Luckily for me, this guy asked to dock his boat for an hour or so at our dock, and I tell him no problem. Now, it is policy to get the name and phone number of customers using free dockage, as well as asking that they leave their keys in the boat so we can move it to a different dock if needed. He complies to all the rules and leaves his boat, and leaves the keys with me. After probably 15 minutes of waiting, the police show up on the dock and ask my boss where the guy is. My boss tells them he just left his boat, but we have his number and can get him to come back to the boat, and he then instructs me to do just that. At this point, I was PO'd at this dude for making me look dumb for basically losing $400, so I call and tell him, "Hey, this is me from Marina. Seems as though there's an issue with your engine and it seems to be smoking." For those that don't know boats that well, engines are very expensive, and this one in particular was a 350 horsepower Yamaha engine, which is top of the line, so that man got back to the boat in record time. When he got back to the boat, the look on his face when he saw 2 cops waiting for him was priceless. He tried to play it off and act like he had done nothing wrong and he didn't know why the police were there, but that was short-lived as they arrested him and told him why he was being arrested. Turns out the guy had almost $2,000 in counterfeit $100 bills on him. Nicely done, OP. I can only imagine the look on his face when he was busted with $2,000 of counterfeit bills. My understanding is that he'll be looking at time in a federal facility for felony charges. They don't do a lot of boating in Club Fed. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.